All right, so a couple of days ago, I went on a little rant, and I said some things that. Well, first, let me apologize, not for what I said, but for how I said it. Uh, I went on a profanity-laced rant about a situation that's getting major news coverage: the Floyd murder, the murder of George Floyd by the Minneapolis police officers. And I say officers because it wasn't just the one that knelt on his neck. It was the three other accessories to the crime. The one that you saw, obviously, the two that you didn't see behind the vehicle, and the coward officer who could have stopped all of it, Mr. Officer Tao, or Mr. Tao now, who they were fired, relieved of their duties or whatnot. Uh, I don't apologize for what I said. I meant every word that I said. I do apologize for the way I said it. And I really didn't realize how far my reach is with this YouTube channel. I just thought, friends and family members subscribed or shared and whatever. But I always offer out well, not always, but I do offer out my email address for responses. And one of the emails that I got blew my mind. It was from a guy that I went to high school with. And I'm not going to say his name, that I graduated with. And he just came out of the blue and said, I saw your little video. And if you don't like America that much, why don't you go back to where you came from? The old me would have responded something negative like, how about I show you where I'm from, or what have you. And then I got to thinking, what would that do? If I beat that guy up, what would that do? It would make us both look foolish because we're in our mid-40s and we're fighting like school children. But I looked at that and thought a couple things. Why don't you go back to where you came from? If you hate America that much, why don't you go back to where you came from? If I hated America that much, why would I join the Marine Corps? And give my life in defense of America, if need be. If I hated America that much. If I hated America that much, why do I fight so hard to end racism? If I hate America that much. Why do I love the way I do? Why do I love people the way I do and treat people the way I do? If I hate America that much. And I didn't respond to him, but I looked at his background, and then I looked at the history we had together. And for 3 years, we were pretty cool with each other. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened over his lifetime to make him be this way towards me. But that had some underlying tones to it. That email had underlying tones to it. He goes on further in that email and called me a race baiter. And I'm thinking, you've known me for 20 some odd years now. We went to high school together. You saw the people I hung out with. And now you want to accuse me of being a race baiter. And that couldn't be the farthest thing from the truth. What I do is, if I see injustice anywhere, I speak out against it. And I've been pretty quiet about speaking out about injustices. And it's time to stop being quiet. Minneapolis is going up in flames. And honestly, I can't say that I blame them. Right, wrong, or indifferent. You know, we watched the same thing happen in Watts with the or L.A. With the Rodney King verdict. I know there were at some point in time there were Watts riots. I think that was during the civil rights time frame, 60s or 60s time frame, I believe. Detroit riots. You know, when is enough enough? People are starting to become fed up. And this is the response. And I have a feeling it's going to get worse before it gets better. You know, and that stinks. Because like I said, if we all just got on one page, on the same page, this could be a dynamite nation. It's funny that we only come together with tragic events. You know, or the Olympics. Everybody's a patriot when the Olympics come around. You know. But reading that email, it kind of touched me. It got next to me a little bit. And, you know, you never know. I feel like sometimes you never know who's an ally, who's a friend. You know, for this guy to come out of his face and say something goofy like that, you know, you're a race baiter. Why don't you go back to where you came from? Well, if I go back to where I came from, I'd have to go back to Alton, Illinois, where I was born, I guess. You know, I was born in Alton, Illinois, but grew up in Houston, Texas, and then moved to Dallas, Texas, and then moved back to the Midwest by way of Jacksonville, Illinois, where I met this guy. But I'm from America, so you're telling me to go back to America? I'm already here. But back to my original point. I do apologize. I know my sister's probably, I hope my sister didn't see that video. She's probably going to text me and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you speak like that. But no, I apologize for the way I said what I said. I'll never apologize for what I said. But the way I said it could have been a little more tactful, if you will. And then I've also heard that the first response is normally the correct one. You know, it's time out for all this foolishness. I mean, how many more people have to be killed by police officers for people to understand, hey, this needs to stop? You know, if you break it, like I said in the last video, if you break it down to just people or human beings, how many more human beings have to be hurt for their voice to be heard? You know, what's so threatening about black skin that makes you want to do things like this? And I'm not saying all cops are bad or after police or anything like that. What I'm saying is there's bad apples in every bunch. And somehow these apples slip through the cracks. And that there needs to be a system of accountability for these bad apples. You know, how is it that it can exercise self-control when it comes to one group of people, but feel threatened to use excessive force when it comes to another group of people? I mean, something doesn't smell right. It doesn't smell right. You know you can control yourself. How is it that an unarmed individual gets murdered and individuals armed with AR-15s yelling in the faces of police officers, go away unscathed. What am I missing? Where's the disconnect and all that? You know, it could be me tomorrow. It could be my sons the next day. You know, I text my sons today. I said, man, y'all be careful out there. It's a darn shame that I have to have this conversation in 2020 with my sons. I remember growing up in Farmers Branch, Texas. Uh, and even before that, I remember my mother took me to go see Boys in the Hood. I think I was about 10 or 11 years old. And the big thing back then was at the age of 18, as a black male, you'll either be in jail or in a casket. And I remember being in like the 6th grade thinking, man, I just want to make it to see 18 years old. And wondering if the trap that was set before me was going to swallow me. You know, gang violence in Dallas was on the rise. And yeah, I lived in a suburb of Farmers Branch, but it was starting to trickle down into Farmers Branch. And that was the biggest thing. Will I make it to my 18th birthday? You know, and here I am, 20, 30 some odd years later, having the same conversations my mother had with me, with my sons. Be careful out there. The playing field is not level. You have to work that much harder just to be shown as an equivalent. And I'm not going to sit up here and tell you, oh, privilege isn't real. Privilege is darn real. You know, I'm not going to put a color on it. Because in some regards, in some aspects of life, I've been privileged. You know, privilege is very real. You know, a lot of people talk about, oh, my constitutional rights and yada yada. You know, and if you really want to dig down deep into it, America wasn't built for guys or for people that look like me. You know, it was built by people that look like me, but it really wasn't built for people that look like me. And you would think, you know, all these centuries and decades later, that the narrative would change. You know, America used to be called a melting pot. But now I'm looking at America as like a big old pot of beef stew. In a melting pot, all the flavors and all the ingredients mix to become one meal. Or one item. I look at America now as beef stew. Yeah, the flavors kind of come together, but everything is its own each individual. You know, you have your beef, and you have your carrots and your celery and your potatoes or whatever you put in your beef stew. And it's like now more than ever, no one is trying to learn about the other culture. It's like everybody's off into their own little groups. And everybody thinks their group is better than the next group, and they're not. We're not. Nobody's better than anybody. You know, we're all the same underneath. You know, you take the skin off, We're all the same. Muscles, blood tissue, sinews, tendons, ligaments, and bones, blood vessels. We're all the same with the skin off. I don't get it. I don't get it. I love all of my fellow people. I love all of my fellow human beings. And it's hard to keep loving when you see stuff like this day in and day out. You hear about it day in and day out. A couple gets killed in their own home. The police at the wrong home. Guy kneels in protest at the advice of a veteran. Kneels in protest. And he's up, and everybody's up in arms about that. Protesting peacefully. Standing up against what's wrong, police brutality. And he gets blackballed out of the league for that. But here you have a coward who murders a man, gets fired from his job. And let's just be real, a lot of these cops, they get fired for this isn't his first time using excessive force. I'm pretty sure if you looked at his record, he's used excessive force before. Maybe not to this extent, but this isn't the first time he's done this. Or you can't convince me that this is the first time he's done it. This one is a little bit long, and I understand if you don't watch it all the way through, but these are really my thoughts. This is what I thought about today and the day before, and in dealing with my sons, thinking about their safety. I'm worried about my sons. I'm worried about my daughter. I'm worried about my nieces and nephews and all of my adopted children. We need to leave America in better shape than what it is. We need to teach these kids a better way. And granted, you still got some that are teaching these babies to hate. Don't trust them because they don't look like you. Trust your own. Stick with your own. I had my Facebook Messenger was lit up, and I saw that I was added to a group, and it was a group of cooks in the mess hall that I worked at when I served in the Marines. And I was a cook. Actually, I was a supply clerk, but then they threw me in the galley too. But don't get it twisted. I can still fire that M16, and I was attached to an artillery unit, so we were always going to the field anyway. That's beside the point. And I looked at those guys. You had guys from all over the United States. And you had guys from different backgrounds. How is it that we can come together and look past color and look past nationality and look past creed and form a tight brotherhood? Those aren't just my friends. Those are my brothers. And I know at any given moment, if I desperately needed to, I could call any one of those guys and say, hey, I need. And they'll say to me, Holmes, don't even worry about it. We got you. We got your six. So how is it that guys who don't know each other from a hole in the wall get thrown together, put in adverse situations, 13 weeks later come out as brothers? How is it that we can stick together And we haven't talked in over 20 years. How is it that that same brotherhood feel can come back, and that we as Americans can't unite under the American banner and just support one another? Nobody said we had to agree on everything. It's okay to have disagreements. It's okay to hash out those disagreements. But what we're doing now is sickening, and it's going to destroy us all. There's going to be a point in time, I feel like, that people are going to have to choose a side. If history repeats itself, people are going to have to choose a side. You know, there's going to be, for lack of a better term, a civil war. There's already civil unrest. And if this isn't a wake-up call, if Minneapolis isn't a wake-up call, you know, the next city is going to burn. And the city after that is going to burn. And the city after that is going to burn. And we can prevent all of this from happening. People are getting fed up. It's just the bottom line. People are getting fed up. You know, I dread the day that stuff like this hits closer to home. You know, I'm really fearful that I'll get a phone call. You know, something's happened to Chris, or something's happened to Jay, or my mother gets a phone call. You know, are you the parent of? You know, I've never been afraid of anything per se, but I'm concerned, and you know what? I am afraid. I'm scared for what's going to happen to this nation if things don't change swiftly. I'm not fearful for my life, because if it's my time to go, it's just my time to go. But I'm afraid. I'm fearful of what could happen to this nation if things don't change immediately. You know, I mean, I can push all the positivity in the world, but if nobody listens, or if nobody acts on it, I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels. One day at a time. We just need to just get back to loving one another. There's nothing wrong with loving somebody and building somebody up. There's nothing wrong with holding somebody up. There's nothing wrong with standing up against what is wrong, standing up for what's right. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in speaking out against injustice, or even speaking up, because if you're silent, you're a silent supporter. If George Floyd doesn't bother you, you're the problem. If that incident didn't get next to you or make you feel anything, you're the problem. I didn't mean to go on for so long, y'all. And I understand if y'all skip through this one a bunch. It's cool. I understand if y'all don't watch this one, it's cool. But I just had to get that off my chest. I really do. I really did. I just had to get that off my chest, y'all. Y'all have a good evening.